Happy New Year! Yay! 2022. Happy New Year. And thank you for joining me on this video. This is the first official proper video of the channel, Andy QB Good Vibes. Good vibes only. And we're gonna kick it off with a New Year's theme, New Year's resolutions. New Year's resolutions. Let's talk about them. What is a New Year's resolution? Well, I think people have different definitions, and the point of this video is I will discuss some of how people tend to approach resolutions, pros and cons of that, and I'll try to offer you some of my tips and advice on how to come up with effective, intentional resolutions for yourself to set yourself up for success for the new year. Before that though, let's just talk a little bit about what resolutions tend to be like. A lot of resolutions, are rooted in a negative idea, a negative perception of the self. Something like lose weight, implying I have too much weight now, I want to lose said weight. It's about reducing something instead of gaining something. See how that's negative? The positive version of that would be gaining fitness or gaining health. Another thing is resolutions tend to be ambiguous. People will say something like, eat better. What does that mean exactly? You're not gonna carry it through because you don't know how, or you haven't set up how. My biggest pet peeve with resolutions, and okay, let me just say, I'm all for resolutions, goals. The problem I have with the word resolution is that idea that it's these goals that we only set in the new year. A resolution really is something that you declare to fix. It is stubborn in a way that often actually stops us from accomplishing things. It's a very non-compassionate or kind, gentle with the self way of framing things. There's no wavering. There is no room for error, go from one extreme to the other. And the reality is that incorporating new habits or just any long-term bigger goal, the reality is it's a slow progression and it's a progression over time. That's what progression means. It means it's not just gonna boom, we completely flipped everything. No, that's ungrounding. That's not gonna last for you because you haven't built the habit. And if you're already doing resolutions and you call them that, but you approach them differently and more positively and it works for you, fantastic. That's great. Keep what you're doing. You can keep calling them resolutions. I'm not canceling the word or anything like that. So pros of the existing basic concept of resolutions is that you're doing it forces you to think about what you want and what you don't want and want to improve yourself and grow. Those are fantastic things. Any version of that has a good side to it for sure. But the cons is what I shared of the way we phrase and frame these things or approach them isn't always the most constructive and much less to enjoy accomplishing these things when really they're things we want. It should always be positively motivated. You should think about what you do want, not what you don't want. What do you want instead? And that's what keeps you motivated and keeps you hooked on that goal because you know why you're doing it and what you're aspiring to. You need a vision of what you're aspiring to. So let's just go for it. Let's start off with Andy's tips for setting New Year's resolutions or goals. Tip number 1, reflect. That's right. Before you do any goal setting whatsoever, you need to take a second to just reflect. Before you look forward in the future and start envisioning who you want to be and whatever, to do that the most effectively, you want to first have a good idea of who you are right now, where you're at right now, and where you've been. And reflecting is what allows us to see what works, what doesn't work, what we want to keep with us, what we want to release, and where we want to go, right? It's a journey. So step 1, reflect. Questions for reflecting that you might want to journal on. What's your life look like? Think about all the areas of your life. Where you're at with yourself. How do you feel about yourself? Those feelings is what's going to lead us to those goals, right? How did you get to where you're at now? What led you there? What decisions? Were there mistakes along the way that actually led you to where you're at now? Can that reframe how you think about mistakes? What worked? What didn't work as well for us? Where is there room for improvement? Where is there room for us to give ourselves some credit and celebrate victories, however small they are? What got you through the year? What did you find grounding? What did you find uncomfortable? Did you push yourself? Were you in your comfort zone? Those are a lot of questions. I know you don't have to answer all of them or even think about all of them, but I'm just throwing out as many little prompts as I can think of that I think can help guide some fruitful reflections for you. Step 2 is going to be creating intentions or goals from those reflections. Where are we satisfied? Are we fulfilled? Are we lacking or feeling an emptiness or a disconnect? Those areas you for sure want to focus on and think of at least one goal for, right? Let me just say this right now for everybody that needs to hear this. You deserve a full, balanced life. So we're not seeking perfection here. We're just seeking, well, what are you seeking? That's exactly what my step 2 is. What are you seeking? And that will vary from person to person, right? It depends on your values, what you want to lead your life with. So for one person, their intentions and goals might be set around finding securities. A different person might hold the value of freedom, and it's a completely different set of goals for sure, and both versions are very valid. And those are just 2 values. Other values that you may hold as your guiding star, I have the Christmas themes in mind. It's very recent, you guys. Could be connection, creativity, peace, joy, exploration, depth, like deepening what you already have. So before a goal is set, you need to have a very clear why. What is the point of the goal, right? What are you trying to reach? And with this, I've had a whole process throughout the years, because I used to be very, very married to the path of the goal, actually, more than the goal itself. Like I got so obsessed with breaking that down and this is step 1, 2, 3, to the point where I lost track of the goal itself or why I wanted that goal, right? And maybe this resonates with you, maybe it doesn't. But something I've found helpful is to really question myself on what the point of the goal is, and I call that more of the intention. For example, maybe your goal is to pursue higher education, go to grad school or something. Well, why? You know, because you feel like you have to, because someone told you to, because it's the next step, because you don't know what else to do, or what are you really trying to gain? What do you want to do with that degree? It's so much more powerful to have a goal that is, I want to go to grad school for psychology so that I can be a licensed therapist, so that I can use my knowledge to help other people because that's something that brings me fulfillment in life, versus I want to apply to grad school. Like just saying that, I'm like, I don't really want to do that, right? This isn't my goal, by the way. In this hypothetical scenario for a person, we'll call her Amy. Amy really wants to help people. She finds it fulfilling. Great. Now that she's clear on that intention, that's what she'll focus on. She might also find alternative ways to reach that longer term goal. Maybe she completely reroutes and learns she prefers to help people by teaching people. Maybe she goes into education and goes to grad school for that. The point is that when you really get to the core of why you're doing things, you also open up your eyes to other opportunities that might help you get there that you would have overlooked otherwise. It's kind of like if you're hiking and you go on those paths that have pre-made steps, which I hate, by the way, and then there's so many of them and they're so stuck together for some reason that you have to look at the ground and just kind of like look step by step at your feet, and you're missing the nature around you when you could just take so many other ways, and you know you'll be fine, or they might even be more interesting and more for you, or you might get there faster. Little analogy for those of you who find those helpful. I love analogies, so you're in the right place. So step 3, now that we've got our intentions clear, it's time to generate those goals. 1, positive. Frame them in a way where you focus on what you want. 2, you want that goal to be flexible in the sense that you want to keep that goal, and this is a goal you're setting right now with where you're at. But as you gain more information and you learn more or experience more things, you might edit that goal. It might slightly shift. That's okay. That's completely okay. That's growth. That's part of growth. Part of growth is reevaluating. So don't be afraid to reevaluate your goals. We're gonna get to that, but there's definitely gonna be a reevaluating process, all right? So for now, where you're at right now, set those goals as best you can. To the degree of specificity that you can. Ideally, you want your goals to be specific. But in some cases, vagueness could help. However, vague without follow through. So it's not really about it being vague in the first place, it's what you do with it afterwards. But allow yourself to set the goals at the vagueness or specificity that feels the most productive to you. You might have to play around with that. You might not know what works best for you. I've definitely fluctuated and depends on where I'm at in life. You can get real detailed with this, so be gentle with yourself as you set them. 4, don't make too many goals. A tool I have for that I think is really helpful is brain dumping, where you let yourself write all the goals you can think of, everything. And that's useful because then you allow yourself to get the things that are at the forefront of your mind out of the way, they're already on the page. And then you unlock the other things that you might really care about or are interested in or are new and so you don't already work on that you want to work on that might be super helpful for you. You allow those to come to the forefront as well and you get to write those down. But now that page is going to be very overwhelming and so that's why my tip number 4 is to narrow it down. So from that brain dump, give yourself some time, perhaps maybe the next day, come back to it, read them, look at them, and you can make this visual, just circle the ones that you feel the most evocative to you, that make you the most excited. Basically, you want to really narrow down to the things you want to focus on. And I am a believer that you can do a lot at once. There still is a certain amount of focus you need to have in order to really prevail in making your goals come to life. But keep that brain dump. Maybe put that up on a wall somewhere for when you're feeling like you have free time, you don't know what to do with yourself. Pick one of those other things you said you wanted to try. Suggestions. You also want to make your goals achievable. There are a lot of different methods with this. I'm sure you've heard of SMART goals. If you haven't, SMART goals are goals that are specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, which goes back to think about those values and what you actually care about in life, and time bound. So they have like a time in which you check in or you want to accomplish this thing by. If we're doing New Year's resolutions, goals, it might be that by the end of 2022 you want these things done or accomplished, or you want to feel that certain way. We could really go in depth on how to set up successful goals for ourselves, and that can be its own video. Here I just kind of want to touch on the surface of a lot of different things that come into play in setting big picture goals. That's essentially what New Year's goals are, is big picture goals. And so being big picture, there's a lot that goes into it. We really want to make these things happen for ourselves. So if you want more in-depth goal setting videos, let me know. It's probably something I will get to at some point, since it's something I'm constantly fine-tuning for myself. All right, so the next step would be to make those goals get broken down into a process, an action plan, right, so to speak. And you could approach that so many different ways. If you're someone who needs more time structure and calendars, you could break that year goal into like what that looks like for half year and 3 months and 1 month, and then this week kind of go like that. Maybe you're someone more creative and you want to make like a vision board for the goal or for all your goals. Maybe it's helpful to draw like a mind map and have like the goal and then like branch that out to all the things that you could do for it, to just kind of creatively brainstorm. Really lean into what kind of learner you are. This is in the end for you. You're not creating these goals for anyone else. No one else really needs to see them. I mean, you can share them with people, that's great. Hold yourself accountable, but you know what I mean. And make it fun for yourself. Definitely, you will at some point need to break down those goals into actionable, smaller goals to also make it less daunting for yourself and be able to start somewhere. Starting is always the hardest part. So also give yourself a big pat in the back. Be super kind to yourself, celebrate. Give yourself credit along the way. And starting is the start of you're on the way. You started. That's great. Good job. Seriously. And then let that keep motivating you. Keep motivating yourself. And finally, my tip for setting resolutions and goals for the new year is to reevaluate. Let yourself look back on this, not just next year, no, like look at this every month, every week potentially, you know, whatever feels good for you time-wise, but with regularity, take a look at those goals that you set, take a look at these brainstorms, see how you feel about it now, see where you're at now. Have you progressed? Have you maybe already accomplished a bunch of these and you need new goals? I have goals for every month and then every week and every day. The day ones, I fluctuate between having really intense to-do lists or none at all. Sometimes I do better when I don't write it down because I don't overwhelm myself and I just kind of do things as I feel like them. And other days I really need to have the written down version. Again, knowing yourself, right? Because the reality is we are human beings, we fluctuate, we have phases, we go through different circumstances, different moods, and so we need to just listen to what we need and cater to that and make ourselves have the right environment for success. So yes, please reevaluate your goals. It means you're really committed to reaching those intentions or finding the right intentions for yourself, and you're committed to growth and progress and fulfillment, and you love yourself. All in all, if you've watched this video, if you're setting goals, if you're setting resolutions, if you're reflecting on your life and thinking about what you want, all those are wonderful things, and I am so glad that you are taking your happiness and fulfillment seriously. And I really wish you the best for this new year. I hope all your goals prosper and you reach them and you can be satisfied at the end of 2022. If this video was helpful, please let me know in the comments below what you found the most helpful. If you have any other tips and suggestions for people, please also comment those below. I'm sure people would love to hear what you have to say. And if you like this video, please like, please subscribe. This is a new channel, so I really would appreciate the support. And more of this to come. We'll get more and more specific as well. All kinds of things. Have a good night. Bye.